If you've ever felt like Blender is a little overwhelming or difficult to use, you're not alone. Many people have reached out to me expressing their frustration with Blender's interface. And that's because to use the program efficiently, you have to memorize a lot of keyboard shortcuts and make use of right-click menus and pop-up menus and pie menus. And sometimes you just have to dig around to find the things that you need. And if you're in object mode or edit mode, some commands or options may or may not be available. And then we also have all these different workspaces. So Blender is a very powerful program, and because of that, it can be a little confusing and overwhelming for new users. So in this video, I'll show you some of the things that I do to customize Blender's interface to make it a little less confusing and easier to use. So this is the standard Blender interface, and to begin, I guess I'll start with the workspaces across the top. There's quite a few of them, but I typically only use 3 of them. When I'm building a model, I'm working here in the layout workspace or the modeling workspace. They're basically the same thing, so I'm not sure why we have 2 of them. The only difference is here in the layout workspace, we have this window down here at the bottom that you can pull up, and you can change it to whatever you want. But other than that, these 2 workspaces are identical. The other workspaces that I use are the UV editor and the shading workspace. Sometimes I'll do some compositing, or I'll do something with geometry nodes, but that's about it. So if you want to, you can get rid of some of these other tabs, like the scripting tab. I'm not a developer and I don't write code, so this is a workspace that I never use. And to get rid of it, all you have to do is right-click on it and hit delete. I also don't do animation. Sometimes I'll do a turntable rendering, but if I'm doing that, I'll just do it over here in the Layout tab, where I can pull up the timeline and do the rendering here. So I'll go ahead and delete the Animation tab and the Rendering tab, since I don't use that one either. But if you're concerned that maybe at some point in the future you might want to do some animation, you can always add the workspace back in. All you have to do is click on this plus button, and then you can choose to add the animation workspace or the scripting workspace or whatever. So nothing is ever really lost forever. You can always bring it back. And if you feel like you've completely messed up your interface, you can come over here to the File menu, go to Defaults, and Load Factory Settings. And that will set Blender back to the way it was when you installed it. Now the next thing I want to do is create a custom workspace, because once I'm finished building a model and I'm done with UVs and materials and everything, and I'm ready to set up the scene for rendering, I don't want to keep jumping back and forth between these tabs if I need to tweak my UVs or materials, and I don't want to be jumping in and out of camera view to adjust lighting or move things around, or keep switching back and forth between rendered view and solid view. I want everything to be in one workspace where I can easily do what I need to do with minimal effort. And to do that, you could customize one of these existing workspaces, but I want to leave these as they are, so I'll click the plus button and add a new workspace. And it doesn't matter which one of these you pick, because you can customize it. So I'll go to General and I'll choose Modeling. And now I have this new tab, so I'll double click on it and rename it to something else, like Scene Setup, because this workspace will be used for finalizing the overall setup for the rendering. And now that I have a workspace, I need to create the various windows that I'll need. And to do that, I can hover my cursor on the edge of the window, and when it switches to a double arrow, I'll right-click, and from this menu, I can split a window vertically or horizontally, and then drag out a new window and left-click to accept it. And then I can click here on the Editor Type button to change what the window displays. So maybe I want this top one to be the Shader Editor, and this bottom one to be the UV Editor window. Or maybe I want the UV Editor to be on top, so I can hover my cursor on the edge between the 2 windows, and then right-click and swap areas. And if you want to get rid of a window, place your cursor on the edge between the 2 windows, and then right-click and join up or join down depending on which window you want to keep. And in this case, I want to keep the UV window and get rid of the shader window, so I'll join down. And then if I want to get rid of the UV window, I can join left, and now I'm back to the single 3D viewport. So it's really easy to customize your workspace. And what I like to do is split my workspace into 4 windows. So I'll drag out a vertical window here, and then I'll drag out a horizontal window here, and another one here. I'll keep this one in the upper right corner as the 3D viewport, and I'll make this one in the upper left corner the UV editor, and the one in the lower right corner will be my shader editor. And I'll adjust the size for each of them, maybe something like that. And now for this window in the lower left corner, I want this one to be my rendered view. And it's already set to 3D viewport, so I'll hover my cursor on the top toolbar, and then I can roll my scroll wheel until I get to the end and switch to rendered view. And I don't have anything to look at, so I'll jump back over to the layout workspace, and I'll pull this bottom window up. And right now it's displaying the timeline, so I'll switch it to the asset browser, and then scroll down to the bottom, and I'll drag and drop this character into the viewport. And then I'll switch back to the timeline and minimize the window. And then I'll hit Shift A and add a camera. And I'll set the focal length to 25 millimeters. And I'll zoom in a little and then hold down Control and Alt and hit 0 on the number pad to move the camera to my current view. Then I'll open up the side panel, go to the View tab, and make sure I have Camera to View enabled. And now I can position my camera view to something like that. And then I'll hit N to close the side panel and go back over to my custom workspace. And in my render window, I can hit 0 on the number pad to jump into camera view and see how my scene is looking. But it's a little zoomed out, so I'll open up the side menu again, go back to the View tab, and you see Camera to View is disabled. So I'll hit N to close the menu, and now I can zoom in a little bit to get a closer view. And over here I can add other objects and lights and move things around and make adjustments as I watch in the camera view to see how it looks. And up here I can tweak my UVs if necessary, and down here I can adjust materials, and I can do all of this without having to leave this workspace. And now that I've deleted some workspaces and added this new one, I want to reorganize the placement of these tabs. So I'll right-click on the Sculpting tab and reorder to back. Then I'll do the same thing for the Texture Paint tab, and the Geometry nodes, and the Compositing tab. So now the workspaces that I use all the time are grouped together here, and the ones that I don't use that often are grouped here at the end. And that's it for my interface. But another thing that I like to do is to add specific commands to my quick favorites. Because when I'm working, I don't like to look down at my keyboard or move my left hand away from the home keys unless it's absolutely necessary. So if there's a command that I use a lot, but it's not easy to access on the left side of the keyboard, or it's not in a right-click menu, I'll add it to my quick favorites. For instance, a command that I use a lot is bridge edge loops. So I'll jump back over to the layout workspace, and I'll hit the 0 key to jump out of camera view, and I'll select the cube and hit the tab key to switch to edit mode, and I'll add some loop cuts here to the cube. And then I'll delete this face here in the middle. So now I want to bridge these two edges. But to do that, I have to come up here to the Edge menu and then find it here in the menu. And that takes me away from what I'm doing and breaks my focus. It's much easier to just take Q to open up the quick favorites, and I have it right here where it's easy to access. And you see I have a few other commands here also. And these are all the commands that I use in edit mode, but if I hit the tab key and switch to object mode, you see I have different quick favorites. So this menu is very useful. And to add a command to your quick favorites, all you have to do is find it in the menu system. So I'll switch back to edit mode, and I'll come up here to the select menu, and I'll come down here to select loops, and maybe this edge rings command is one that you use a lot. So if you right click on it, you can either assign a shortcut or you can add it to your quick favorites. So I'll go ahead and add it, and then I'll come back down to the cube, double click on an edge loop to select it, and then I'll hit Q, and here's the edge rings, so I can select it, and now all the edge rings are selected. And if you decide that you don't want a command in your quick favorites anymore, just take Q to open the menu, then right click on the one you don't want and select remove from quick favorites. So it's very easy to customize this menu with commands that you use a lot. And once you get your quick favorites set up, you need to come up here to the edit menu, go to preferences, and then save preferences. Otherwise your quick favorites will be gone the next time you open Blender. And anytime you add or remove commands from this menu, you'll need to come back up here and save preferences. So yeah, that's my basic setup. But one other thing that I like to do is change the interface colors to get something a little more interesting. And to do that, you can come up here to Themes and open up the 3D Viewport section. And you can go through here and change these colors to whatever you want. But if you're like me and you don't want to spend a bunch of time dialing in all these colors, you can come up here and click in this box at the top, and whatever custom themes you have loaded will be displayed here. I already have a few loaded, and if I click on one of them, you see my interface will change to that theme. My current favorite is this NVIDIA theme. I like the dark interface with the green text and highlights and everything, but these aren't the only ones that are available. If you switch to Get Extensions, and then click here where it says Add-ons, and then click Themes, you can see all the ones that are available. And there's a lot of them. The only problem is you can't view any of these before you install them. But if you open up your browser and go to extensions.blender.org and come down here to Themes, you can see all of them here and decide which ones you might want to install. Some of them are really cool and some of them are really not cool, like this genuinely disgusting one. I think I would avoid this one completely. But I think this shadow theme looks interesting. So I'll come back over to Blender and scroll down until I find it, and then click Install. And now if I come back over here to Themes, you see it's here in my list. And if you want this to be your default, just come down here and click Save Preferences. And then when you close Blender and open it back up, this theme will be loaded. So I'm going to switch back to the NVIDIA theme, and now that I have Blender set up the way I want it, I need to save this as my default startup file, because right now, if I close Blender, this custom workspace will be gone when I start it back up. My theme will still be loaded because I saved it in Preferences, but this workspace and all the changes I made will be gone. So I'll switch back to the layout workspace, because that's the one I want to be in when I start Blender, and I don't want all this stuff in my startup file. So I'll delete everything except the character and the camera. And then I'll come over here to the File menu, go to Cleanup, and Purge Unused Data. And that should clear out any extra stuff that might still be hanging around. And now I'll position my view the way I want it. And if I want to adjust my default render settings, I can do that here. Or if I want to adjust my output settings, or scene properties, or if I want a specific HDRI to load at startup, I can make all those adjustments. And once I have everything set up the way I want it, I'll come back over to the Edit menu, go to Preferences, and Save Preferences again, just to make sure everything is saved. Then I'll come up here to the File menu, and come down to Defaults, and click Save Startup File. And it'll ask me if I want to overwrite the existing file. So I'll click Overwrite. And now if I open up a new instance of Blender, you see it opens with the Layout tab active. And my new workspace is here. And everything is set up the way I had it configured. So that's about it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post them below. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.